day, and welcome to another session where we are talking mental wellness and workplace wellness. Today in the studio, we are joined by Edith Utete, who is a lawyer as well as a digital media expert. Hello, Edith.
Hello, Edith.
Don't you just love that? The two Ediths. Hi, Edith.
Hi, Edith.
Thank you, Edith, for joining. Just before we started, Edith and I were having a conversation of how, as individuals, we are participating in the real world that you and I can touch and feel and see, which is the world we live in, which is the universe, and we are part of that as children of the universe. But there's another world where we also very much live in, which is more the virtual space, the digital space, and where we are leaving a digital footprint. And to a very large extent, Edith tells me we're actually now more and more citizens of two worlds, the digital space and the real physical world. Edith, how did we get there?
Well, it has been a long time coming with the fourth industrial revolution, where we found ourselves using technology more and more. And I think the COVID-19 pandemic actually just spurred everything further. We're thrust into this world where we all had to go online, because now we had to go and work online, learn there, and even host social functions, funerals, weddings. Everything went online. We are banking, we're transacting. So business is being conducted online. So this is what has now made us digital citizens. If you ask anybody, if anybody lost or missed their phone, they'll tell you, my whole life was on that device.
They can't function. We can't function when we are not online, and we need those gadgets.
Yes.
But from what you say, it sounds like the fourth industrial revolution has been very good. It has introduced remote work, but it has helped us to connect and to function, and it's just really reduced the size of the world as we know it.
True.
But more and more, I get parents coming to me, talking to me, raising concerns about the children, the young children, and how they are interacting with this new normal, the digital space and access to gadgets, and how now your child can be sitting here in Harare and having a conversation with somebody sitting in Utah or Philadelphia or India or even the Philippines. So when you look at the parenting side of this digital space, a lot of us are finding it very difficult as parents to say, how do we even parent in this new millennial, in this advent of all these gadgets and communication devices? And I want us to have a conversation, Edith, of how a parent does that, or how do they help their child to navigate this digital world in an era where we also know that there is so much self-harm. The children are validation seeking with very limited well-being, even within the home context, never mind the workplace.
Yes, there's a lot there. And like you're saying, we've got young people now, as young as 5 and 6. I've had sessions with preschoolers who already know how to navigate gadgets. And they're so savvy at it. They're creative. They can come up with different things. But the concern for me, and I know for a lot of parents, has been that these children just are not literate digitally. They've got the skills, but they're not literate. By that, I mean they don't know how to protect themselves. They don't know how to be safe. Like you were referring to the fact that the world is now flat, no boundaries, no borders, no visas to reach anyone at any time. So that ease of access has come like a double-edged sword, where on one hand, it's really good, efficient, productive, but on the other hand, it has put our lives and our children's lives in the face of danger. We have people who can now access them from anywhere in the world, people who don't always have the best of intentions. And what this means now is that we as parents have a very big role to play to ensure that we protect our children, we guide them we also hold them accountable. Teach them that when you do something you're not supposed to, there'll be consequences. And I've personally seen that when it comes to phones, we sort of give away our parental role, because here we start thinking this will be the babysitter for my child. But I'll tell you, I've got a 4-year-old, and my 4-year-old loves YouTube. She loves it. She loved Baby Shark at first, and now she realized that, oh, after this video there comes another and another, and I can scroll up and down, and she can even download things.
Oh, wow.
And she knows that when the Wi-Fi is off, she can't function.
So she's cyber smart.
She is tech savvy, but
Oh,
she's
wow.
not cyber smart.
Okay.
Because one time she was watching, I don't know if you're familiar with the Chipmunks.
Yes, I know the Chipmunks.
The Chipmunks.
Alvin and the Chipmunks.
Yes, Alvin and the Chipmunks. They've introduced the trio of the girls called the Chipettes. And she was playing a video. She just sees the Chipettes there, and she knows this is one of her favorite things. And she taps onto there, and the Chipettes are singing a song. Can I tell you that there was profanity in that video? The lyrics had profanity, and it's good that I work from home most of the time, so I get to always monitor what she's doing. So when I saw her, what she was watching, I wasn't concerned. But when I listened, I was shocked.
But the thing is, she doesn't even, you said she's 4 years old.
Yes.
So she doesn't even understand.
She doesn't know
the lyrics that she's just regurgitating back
Yes.
because it's on the show. And she
Yes.
loves this show, and they sing it over and over again.
In very cute voices. Yeah.
So at what age, Edith, should parents allow or give gadgets or start introducing this digital space to children?
Most experts, and I agree with this, say that the sooner you can hold it off, the better. But we all know that's not practical, especially right now when there's a lot of remote learning as well. So my view is, as soon as a child needs to be on a gadget, for example, for school or to communicate, then you have to make sure you sort of give them the lessons prior to them accessing the device. It's similar to what we do before you give your child your car keys, you make sure that they've gone through the stages of getting their provisional license, their driver's license, they've done the road test and all that, and you've even driven with them. So that's something that you can also do in the digital world.
So what I'm hearing from you is that parents should be concerned
Yes.
about what their children can access in the digital space. How can parents control that, what their children see, how they interact with the virtual world? What are the practical things that a parent can do to try and control or set boundaries for how their children or child interacts with that world, with the digital world?
Well, for starters, parents should not try to be on every platform. That can be so overwhelming. There's just too much out there. We've got so many apps being thrown into the mix every day. And our children, because they're curious, they will be all over the place as well. So what parents can do is to get to know more about what their children are doing. Awareness is very important. Just getting to understand which apps they're using, what they do there, why they find them intriguing, before you look at the bad side.
But Edith, for me, that's as you're speaking, but as a parent myself, I'm also starting to see some red flags there, because what you're saying assumes that I, as the parent, am navigating the digital space successfully. What if I'm also illiterate when it comes to the digital world? How will I even know what apps you're talking about? Because like you are rightly saying that there's so much out there, and how many of us really as parents are that techie savvy?
You actually don't need to be tech savvy. What I'm saying here is awareness. I'm not saying you have to know the details of it, but just to be aware. Like if I ask my 16-year-old daughter, what do you like on your phone? What is it that you spend so much time doing? I'm on Snapchat, TikTok, and Instagram. That's what she'll tell me. it doesn't mean I have to know what Instagram is about, well, the safety features, whether it has safety features or not. But the fact is, you are aware of which apps they are actually using or consuming. And then the next step after that is to educate yourself. So you take it a step at a time. Maybe like with my daughter, the example I gave, she likes 3 things mainly. She'll try other things, but you find them mostly on those 3. So you pick the one and you talk to your child consistently. You take an interest, and it doesn't have to be formalized and something that is tiresome for both of you. It's like the conversations we have about school. So what is your favorite subject? English. Tell me a little more about what you do in class when you're doing English. Same with the apps. Tell me more about what you're doing when you're on TikTok.
But if you're not on those platforms as a parent, or if you're not friends with your children on those platforms, how can you monitor or even get a feel of how they interact and what they're viewing? Because all these platforms, like you say, people use them for good, but others are also using them for bad or for ill. How does a parent actually access or control how their child interacts with TikTok, with Snapchat, and all these things?
I think our challenge as African parents especially is that we want to control. We want to always be in control of what my child eats, wears, and everything. But I'll tell you honestly, when it comes to the digital spaces, your control is very limited. I've worked with 8 and 7-year-olds who have Finsters, fake Instagram accounts that they can easily create a name. It's so easy for them to even if you have your filters and your whatnot, those children have ways of going around these things. They can hack into school systems. They can do all sorts of things. So the issue here that I'm trying to highlight is that you have to have an interest in your child, but also a relationship where you have open communication with them. What that helps with is that they come to you and share more things with you. Like I was saying with my daughter, the 16-year-old, we have the kind of relationship where I won't say it's perfect, and I won't say I know everything she's doing online, but a lot of what I actually teach other parents, I've learned from my children. The very first time when they were in grade 5, 6, they were at school and they were doing computer studies. And do you know these children, when they were given time to just explore and play games, they were creating accounts on WeChat and communicating, like having conversations on WeChat. I did not even know what WeChat was. In fact, I've never been on that platform. But I know enough to know what the issues I should be concerned about are. So that's the same encouragement I would give a parent. You don't have to have all the details, but to at least understand what is really going on with your children, and then get the basic knowledge about, oh, this TikTok, what does it involve? Can my child be accessible to someone else? Can my child be cyberbullied? What sort of things happen on TikTok? Can they be exposed to content that is too explicit for their age, and so on? Just like YouTube, I thought it was a very innocent tool for as far as I had interacted with it. But
are we able to put parental controls on some of these apps?
Yes, you can.
So I could take my child's gadget and put some controls on what pages they can view.
Yes. So there are systems where with your Wi-Fi, you can actually have, your content that they're not supposed to access, websites that they can't access. So you make sure the settings are adjusted accordingly. And then on the actual gadgets, before you give your child the gadget, you can sync it with yours so that whatever they are accessing, you can also see. You can even control.
So that is a controlling.
You can also do screen time. So there's no privacy, very limited privacy for the child. And it also means more work for you because honestly, it's work monitoring what another person is doing all the time. But it's also important in the first stages, in the early stages when your child has first gained the device, because they also need you to walk through them.
Then it brings me back to what is the right age? Because as you're saying, before you give the child the gadget, you can go into the apps, you can put on your Wi-Fi, you can put controls on what pages they can visit and all that. And I'm thinking, this child has to be in primary school or younger where you can do that. For an older child, would you be able to set those parental controls? And if they know their way around the digital space, won't they even be able to see that somebody else is connected to my gadget?
They can. Even the young ones, the primary school ones,
They
can
can.
tell, yes.
So what is the right age?
But there is no right age in terms of giving a digital device. Why? Because you've got preschoolers who are using gadgets for school and interaction and all that. But the issue is how you lead up to giving your child. You need to know your child well enough to know if they're ready. Like the example I gave about the driving license. Some children will be given cars at 16, others at 24, others at 30. So it depends on you as a parent, knowing your child, knowing whether they're ready or not. But when it comes to social media, there is a restriction. Usually most apps allow for children to be on those social media platforms from 12 to 13 years and above. So if your child is below that age, they should not be on Facebook, they should not be on Instagram, TikTok, but they are.
Because you said they know how to create the fake accounts. What did you call them?
Finsters.
Finsters.
And they
fake accounts.
changed, they also alter their age.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it just asks you which year were you born.
Yes,
and
there's
they can
no verification.
Just put in whatever year that they wish to put there.
Yeah.
It's worrisome. The content that they will access. But more than that, as a parent, Edith, when should we start to be worried as parents with regards to what our children access and the potential impact that it can have on them?
We should be worried the moment they have access to a device. And we're not talking about a personal one, even when they have access to your device as a parent. Some of the young people I work with, one girl was 12, and she was talking about being addicted to pornography from her mother's phone. Another boy was into violent content, also from a parent's phone or a sibling, older sibling's phone. So when it comes to digital media use, as soon as your child can understand, you start talking to them in age-appropriate ways about phones. Even with my little one, the 4-year-old, we'll talk about how to keep it safe, that this is not for you, in a way that she understands.
I'm starting to get a little bit worried, Edith, because we started the conversation wanting to talk about how parents can help build cyber smart children. But the more we start talking about this, and you're telling me that children are getting addicted to pornography, addicted to violent things because of access to content that is on their parents' gadgets, to me that speaks to maybe the adults in our country, in our context, are also not digital smart citizens.
No, they're not.
So this is not a conversation that should be limited to just children, but also to, it's a conversation for everybody.
True.
How do we all become better? How are we supposed to interact with these spaces?
That is very true. We have noticed, especially in the past 2 years, with them being locked up, that a lot of the young people turned to social media for connection, for socializing, and also a lot for validation seeking. There's a certain age, from the ages of 11, 12 going up, where they start with peer validation is very important. And for some, when they went onto the sports field, that was enough. They would feel good because they play the sport, they cheered on by their peers, and it was good enough. But now they're not outside. No one is seeing their achievements. So they turn to social media. And what then happens when they go there? They're also seeing what other people are doing. And they find themselves comparing a lot of what they see with what's going on in their own lives. And as we all know, or most of us know, what people put on social media is usually what we want people to see, the good things about our lives, how we are flourishing and all that. But it's very rare for people to talk about the dark side and the things that are not so good. But for young people, they don't have that emotional intelligence a lot of the time to tell the difference that this is even sometimes put on, fabricated, enhanced. So they then measure their own success or failure based on other people's lives. And also they like to have followers. They want to have likes. They want to have these comments that are complimenting them all the time. I know a lot of young people who will say, when I post something, every 5 minutes or 5 seconds even, I'm checking to see how many people have liked, what people are saying about my post. And if people don't like it enough, according to my standards, I will pull it down.
They remove the post.
Yes. And this is so embedded in them, this desperation for that validation, that you'll find that if they don't have it, they just fall apart. And it leads to depression, anxiety, low self-esteem, and a lot of other mental health issues.
And I keep coming back to say, Edith is speaking to, this is what our children are going through. But for me, I'm looking also at adults. As you are speaking, I'm thinking about adults, men and women, who are also having the same response, or for whom social media has the same effect.
Yes.
Once somebody told me that they went on social media. They were actually feeling quite low. They went on social media, put on some makeup, wore a beautiful dress, and went on social media and just posted stepping out and posted it. And they got comments, oh, lucky you, your life is, I'm admiring you. And immediately she posts that, she goes into her bedroom, removes those clothes, and back to watching Netflix or whatever. So how can we make our children understand that, especially with Instagram, it even says Insta, it's an instant, and it doesn't give you the reality, the lived reality of those individuals. How can we bring it back to say, this is the real world, this is a digital cyberspace, and it's not real, it's virtual, you can't even touch it. And how can we make it not affect us?
So digital citizenship comprises of safety, literacy, and responsibility. Just like in the real world, there are things that we do to safeguard ourselves. We make sure our houses are logged and all that. In the digital citizenship space, we also have to have passwords. We have to secure our information. We have to secure other people's information. And then we have to keep ourselves safe by not making ourselves vulnerable to cyber criminals and other people who might have ill intentions. And then when it comes to literacy, I had touched on a little bit about that earlier, to say that it's not so much about knowing the technical things, but there's what we call common sense in real life. Like, you're not going to go into a street and just walk into the street without checking if there are any dangers around you. You're not going to jump into a lake and not know whether there are crocodiles or anything that could harm you. So it's the same with the digital world. You don't just dive in, contrary to what has been happening in the past. We started off with so much excitement about smartphones and gadgets. Even us, the lawyers who should know better, we would go onto Facebook and not know what to do with ourselves there. We would go onto WhatsApp and not know what to do with ourselves there. But we have to be literate to know what those platforms are really for. You find sometimes people go onto these social media platforms to talk about work-related things, and things that can actually result in breach of contracts, in dismissals at work, in disciplinary action. And the same with the young people as well. I've seen young people who post things about what's going on at their school, really private things that should be within your family setting, your school community, your workplace. So you have to be literate and just exercise pure common sense in how you exercise yourself as a digital citizen. The last thing is responsibility. Just like in the real world, we have a duty of care for other people. There's no way nowhere in the world where you go and you do what you want, and if it affects other people, you're let loose to do whatever you like. You have rights, but those rights also have limitations, and it is the same in the digital world. Because this area is so unregulated, it has been for a very long time. People got the sense that, oh, in the virtual world, I can say whatever I want, do whatever I want, and there are no consequences. And there are no laws that bind me to say you can't cross this boundary. But yet there are the moral laws and the legal laws.
I like, Edith, that you speak to safety issues. You also touched on responsibility. And for me, what comes to mind immediately now is the social influencers that are interacting on this digital space. That if you are a social influencer, do you realize the potential impact that you have, especially on younger children? And I'm seeing that the teenagers and young adults have so much peer pressure coming from what the social influencers in their context are posting.
Yes.
Many schools right now are battling with students, with children taking drugs and other harmful substances. There's also this hype around vaping. And every kid wants to own that vaping gadget. I don't know what if that's really the name for it. And everyone tells me, all the kids I ask tell me that it's harmless, it's just flavored. But why would you want even to have a flavored pseudo mbanje thing, you know? And doesn't it lead to more use of substance and drug abuse, and then subsequent mental health issues that we are beginning to see? For me, I'm starting to see social media as actually a culprit in all this.
Yeah, true. But, you know, social media is just a tool like anything else. And it's up to the people who are using it to define what comes out of that tool. What you're saying about influencers, for example, you remember when we were growing up, we'd see these people in magazines or on television. We never really had that contact with them. But now you find with our young people, their social media influencers are almost like their peers. Like they can even have conversations with them. They even DM each other. I know of one young man who's a gamer who is actually now in touch with the guy who created Roblox.
Oh, wow.
This is a Zimbabwean 12-year-old boy. And this is how easy it is for them to access the people that they look up to and admire. So the other trouble with that is they don't know how to disengage the real life person that they admire and what happens on social media. Like I said, what we do post is usually things that we want people to hear or see. But sometimes they'll dig a little bit deeper and know that, oh, he's an alcoholic, or she's promiscuous or whatever. And they want to be like that person so much that they will follow that. So you find a lot of the celebrities, influencers, they usually come up on social media with alcohol, with drugs or smoking, surrounded by lots of women, scantily dressed. And that's what our young people look up to as success, fame. That's what they equate to having those followers that they want to have. And so some of the things they do, it's not that they think it's the right thing for them, but it's the cool thing. And they don't want to be left out. So that's where you find them following that. Another area which parents have not really looked at is gambling. Gambling is now quite rife because when you go on social media, some of the games that kids play, like Minecraft, and there's options for them to actually do sort of like gamble, but there's no monetary, real money. But it starts the habit.
It creates the appetite for it.
So by the time another opportunity comes, which is real gambling, they get into it. It's the same thing with stripping. The girls see this as something that gets attention, that gets people to like you. So it becomes something that they also start to do even in real life. You see them taking selfies of themselves, scantily dressed or even undressed, because that's what the boys like. And that's what they want. They want to be liked.
And then we get the consequences of when they do this, when they do the nudity, when they have relationships, where they send each other these pictures. And like social media loves to say these days, it doesn't end well. It never ends well. It always ends in tears. We've seen so many examples of late of people who want to live on social media and actually die on social media. 2 years ago, we were exposed to somebody who committed suicide on Facebook even. And we have many examples of relationships that go bad, that go sour, and everything ends up on social media. And you find that whether it's a young adult, whether it's older people, or whether it's our young teens, they can't cope with the stress of having that negative side or having their nudity pictures on social media. And people really have a mental health breakdown, a meltdown, which pushes them to suicide. And I'm sure a lot of us viewers at home can relate to stories or instances of people who have pressured or been pressured by social media to end their lives because information about themselves that they didn't want out there gets on social media. And this is the digital footprint that Edith has been talking about today, that we must remain conscientious about how we interact and how we use social media. And more than anything, I think the key message that you're leaving with us here today is that know how to use the digital platforms as tools to support you in your work, in your business, and in growing and enhancing your connections. And don't let it use you. Unfortunately for today, it seems we're out of time. You were just beginning to unpack all these issues. So what is clear is that, Edith, this conversation cannot end here today like this. We have to come back and talk about how we can parent digital smart children next time. We need to talk about what are the support systems, what needs to be in place for us as parents and for all the parents out there to be better able to support their children to become better digital citizens. Thank you for your time, Edith.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Edith. As a parting shot, I just want to share with all the parents out there that raising children in the digital world is not easy, but it also is not impossible. There are so many tools out there, things that we can also help ourselves with to gain more information about the platforms that the children are using. But the biggest tool that we have is our parenting instinct. We don't have to stop parenting just because we're now in the digital world. Children need us to continue giving them support, love, and guidance. And when they do wrong, for them to be able to be disciplined accordingly. Thank you so much, Edith.
Thank you, Edith. So until next time, when we come back and talk more about parenting instincts and how to parent during this digital era which has really become the new normal. And I want to leave you today with this message that please remember to use digital media and don't let it use you. Until next time, goodbye.
This program is brought to you by Zimplats in partnership with Vitality Wellness, Fastlink, and Saumed.